Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today, Ketubot Daf Chavav. We are going to begin on Chaf Vav Amud Aleph, 8 lines from the top. Tanya, Rav Shimon ben Elazar Omer, Kishem shetruma chazaka l'kahuna. So we were learning when you see a Kohen doing certain things, is that a proof that in fact that he's a Kohen, and therefore we also are going to elevate him regarding Yochsin for marriage. So he said that just like we find when it comes to a Kohen who is eating Truma, that proves that he in fact is a Kohen. Kach meiser rishon chazak l'kahuna. So too, if we find him eating meiser rishon, in which typically was designated for the Levi, but the din is that if we see him eating this, it's proof that he is a Kohen. And then it says, "V'hachaylik b'beis din eno chazaka." However, if it's divided in beis din, it's not a chazaka for meiser rishon. So chazaka. So the question is, as Rashi first explains, "Kostal hadaitach shalpi beis din hakavua beir hayuchal kan loitrima beveis agranos." That he was actually together with a beis din which is set. It seems to be the absolute best situation that you have a beis din kavua that's saying that you are able to have truma. Why would that not be enough? If that's not enough, then what possibly would be enough in order to be able to eat, to be able to be a kohen? But on this, the Gemara asked the first question. If you see him eating meiser rishon, he must be a kohen. Meiser rishon to Levihu. So Rabbi ben Azariah, as we've seen elsewhere, in Yevamos and other Masechtas, that we find, according to Rabbi ben Azariah, it's that Truma l'kohen meiser rishon l'Levi to Rabbi Akiva. So Rabbi Akiva says, of course, Truma is given to a kohen. Meiser rishon, which every year of the 7-year cycle, years 1 through 6, 10% is meiser rishon, is given to the Levi. Rabbi ben Azariah Omer meiser rishon af l'kohen. You don't have to give it to a Levi. You can even give it to a Kohen. So again, the question is, then how is that a proof that he's a Kohen? It's a proof that he's either a Kohen or a Levi. Did he say that it can only be given to a Kohen? No. In Basa de Kansinhu Ezra. Ezra instituted a kanas to whom Rashi says, so in Masechtas Yevamos, which we learned not too long ago, we found that Ezra, when he went up from Babel to Eretz Yisrael for the binyan habayis, for the building of the second base of Mikdash, so we find that there was a Sar Yochsin, 10 different people. However, when it came to Shevet Levi, we don't find that the kosher Levim went with him. And because of that, he kanast the Leviim and said, you're no longer entitled to meiser rishon, we're going to give it to the kohen. So much so that after this kanas, if you would see someone eating meiser rishon, it must be a kohen like this shita. Gemara says, I v'dilma ikru v'yoivle. What if, let's say, he just happened to have given it to the Levi? Again, he didn't know maybe this din. So Rav Chisda hachma eskina kagain the muchsaklan ba'avua the kohenhu. What actually happened here? There was a chazaka already established that this person was a kohen. However, there was some type of a rumor that he was the product of a ben gerushim and chalutza. Of course, we know a gerusha is not allowed to marry a kohen, and if they do so, their child is a chol. So some people were saying that this child actually is a chol. And all of a sudden, he's dividing up this truma. So Levi, dolav Levihu, my iko memer, ben gerush ben chalutzahu. So we're not going to say he's a Levi. Why? Rashi says, but Levi lekla svuki daha aviv kohen. We know that the father's a kohen. So even if it's possible that a Levi does sometimes take meiser rishon, we're not going to think that this man's a Levi because everyone knows the father's a kohen. The question just is the status, is the son also a kohen kosher? So lo miboy laman di meiser rishon asal azarim The one who says that Meiser Rishon is Aser, there's actually also Machlokas Nivamas for non-Kohanim. Doloi Havi Yoivle, they can't give it to them. Even if you can say that you could give it to a non-Kohen, Hanimili, that's only Lemispak, that's only to give them to eat. The fact that he was Chaylet Bevesek Ranois, so then itself is not something which a non-Kohen can do. Even though you may hold that a non-Kohen could eat Truma, that's only once the Kohen or Levi already owns it, and then he could distribute it afterwards and give it to his friend who's a non-Kohen. But Yisrael can't do so. And therefore the fact that he went there is proof that in fact he's not a Chol. And then we said, even if it's divided in a beis din, it's not good enough. So for the Gemara, if it doesn't work there, then where would it work? So Amar Rav Sheshes Hachikamer, Hachol Trum b'Menechsi Aviv im Achim b'Veis Din Enu Chazaka. In other words, what happened, as we'll see in a second, is that the father died, and he's being yarish his things from his father. So again, that in itself doesn't prove his status, says Rashi. Lahashmis me'elav koil hayotzel imoshi grushav huchol. So there was this rumor that this child was a chol, and his father died, who was a legitimate Kohen, and now all of a sudden he's dividing up the Yerusha. So that itself is not a raya pshita. So if that's what we're talking about, then it's the opposite. Why would you think that that would possibly work? So madatema midahanach achila hainami lachila kamashman hanach achila hani and hailazvune. So even though it's true, he is entitled to these assets, it doesn't mean maybe he's not going to eat them. So the fact that it's given to him, now he has ownership of it, and now he could sell it to a legitimate kohen, because maybe he really is a chol and he's not allowed to eat it. And therefore it's not a raya, the fact that he is getting this as a chelik of his father, of the Yerusha from his father, who is a legitimate kohen, then itself is not a proof that this person is a legitimate kohen as well. Question 13. So again, we're talking about ben hachaylikim echav, a child who's dividing with his brothers, truma, shenafli b'yerushas aviv kohen. His father's a kohen. Eno chazaka l'hashmis koil hayotzelav shuchol. It's not if there's a koil that this child is in fact a chol, so that is not going to work. And this is the exact same question as TB11. Literally verbatim. That was TB11. Okay. All right. Now we're up to the two dots. So the Gemara continues and quotes the words of our Mishnah. The Mishnah says, so the question, if we're going to elevate a Kohen based on the testimony of one witness, is that sufficient in order to be able to say that works? So this is the Mishnah all the way back on Chaf Gimel Amud Beis. So he says like this. Rabbi Yehuda says, Ein malin lakun al pi echad. Rabbi Lezer says, Imasa b'makom sheish ayrin. That's only if there's already complaints against him, against perhaps he's not valid. If there's no one complaining, then malin lakun al pi echad. Then Rav Shmuel said in the name of Rav Shimon ben Hasagan that malin lakun al pi echad l'chayra is the same thing as we said above. So that's what the Gemara is going to ask here. That Rabbi Yehuda in malin lakun al pi echad b'chul Rabbi Shmuel hanu Rabbi Lezer. L'chayra, they're saying the same thing. Look at Rashi. It cannot possibly be that Rabbi Shimon disagrees when it comes to a situation where there are complainers, or people are saying that this person is not a Kohen. There's no way he's going to say one witness is going to be enough to remove that. It must be the only time he says that it works is only when there are no Oyrim. So there's only one witness. So that's what the other person said too. So maybe the machlokus is if there's only one complainer. Rabbi Eliezer savar ir chad, Rabbi Shimon savar ir tarti or trey. That the whole machlokas is, again, if it's one witness saying he's good, maybe the complaint is only one witness, and therefore the question is one witness or one person who is creating this complaint, this RR, about this individual, is that enough? So that cannot possibly be the machlokas. Why? Because we already established everyone is of the opinion that a complaint, an error, that's saying that this person may be invalid, may be a chol, you'll need to have at least two people. One is not enough. So then what are they arguing about? If there definitely was there definitely were complainers, so again, in that situation, one would not work. So it must be talking about a case where there's no complainers and one works. That's what are they arguing about then? So the Gemara says, "Hach ella hach b'ma'askinan demuchsaklon ba'avu dehayk dekainhu." The starting point is there was a chazaka. People understood and knew that this person's father, in fact, was a valid kohen, and therefore you would think that this child is therefore also good. However, there was this koil that, in fact, and Rashi says this is a koil ba'alma v'lo edus. There's no testimony, but there was just some type of rumor going around that their child was a chol. And because of this koil, what happened? V'achtine. So we put him down. Rashi says mina kahuna. Ad yibdiku es hadavar l'malo hulukuna. So we say, you know what? Let's just suspend him from his Kohanic rights temporarily while we do this investigation, and then afterwards we'll be able to reinstate him after we figure this out, if in fact this was not a valid kol. Now while they're doing this investigation, someone came, one witness, and said, this person is a good kohen, as we continue Chav Vav Amud Beis. And because at least they already had something to support and to go against this kol, v'askine, they elevated him, because since all it was a kol, this one witness will be able to support or go against this kol. Yosef Beitrein, all of a sudden now two people came, the Amri ben Grush ben Chalutzahu, which is a big problem. You actually have two people saying, no. That kol that you originally heard is correct. He is a chol. And because of the v'achtine, so Beis Din then put him down. And now you have a second guy who came a little later on and said, no, he's a kohen. Now the kuliyam and Mistar from Leidus, they have these two people, even though they didn't come at the same time, we all agree that these two witnesses who are saying that he is fine, that we're going to say that they're mitzaref, and it's like it's two. So what is the machlokas, what we'll do in this situation when this guy comes? We're concerned about the potential, the fact that he was put down, they went up, went back down. We're concerned that people are going to start thinking that Beis Din doesn't know what it's doing, even though it does. There was justification for all these different things, but it doesn't matter. And we don't want people to start thinking that the Beis Din doesn't understand how to operate. And that's the machlokas. Tanakam asar v'kivan di achtine loy maskinon lay. That once we've already put him down, we're not going to raise him up. Chayshina l'zus lebeidina. Shemil savar anan achtinan v'anan maskinon lay. We put him down, and we can lift him. So we don't care about what people think. We have to do what's right. Why does it say in this case that there was one guy who said he was a kohen, then two said he's a chol, then one says that he's good? If that's the machlokas, just say the case of two, says Rashi. Why do you have to have it they were split? Even if they came together, Bapam Shniel or Belezer lo maskinin lay, he still wouldn't lift them up. El Omer Ravashi min starfin latest kmifagi. Actually, the machlokus is totally on whether or not we're going to be mitzarf these edis, because otherwise, why are we talking about a situation where there was one, and then two came to say that he was a chol, then one came to say he was a kain? So to say that they both came at the same time, the fact that they were split, that's probably what the machlokas is about. The fact that they didn't come at the same time, and as Rashi says, Shnei edim ha'me'idin zeh shel b'fnei zeh b'shar ediyos. So the question is, does that work? So b'phuta hani tanoi desanya ein edusim mistrefes that shir shneim ke'echad. They both have to see it at the same time. Rabbi Yeshua ben Karchaimer afil b'zachar zeh. Even if they're not at the same time, the ein edusim is kayemis b'beisen ad she'idu shneim ke'echad. And it says the edus, they have to testify at the same time. Even if they didn't see it at the same time, they have to testify at the same time. We can actually listen to one person's testimony today. And if the other guy comes tomorrow, then that will also be fine. We're going to listen to them as well. So that's not an issue. Okay, fine. Question 14. Eid echad machshel kahuna mikar. So one guy says that he's fine. Ve'eid echad b'soif, and then one at the end. Ushnaim orim b'nehem, which is our case. Ma dinu latruma u'ma hatstadim zeh. So what is the din in this situation? What is stadim? So he says it's plukta tetanoi imitzdarfen edus hamachshirin u'makminan achas kasai. Oh, she'em mitzdarfen in oichel b'truma. So again, the question is, simply put, are we mitzdarf edus in this particular situation? So that is the machlokas or maskama. Let's see another question here, which is TA 10. Maybe the same question. Oh, we didn't do that yet. Okay, weiter. Next mission. Ha'isha she'nechbisha. If you have a woman who is in captivity, b'nei Avi Chachavim, and we're always concerned if she's together with Avi Chachavim that they may have defiled her, made her tameya. So on this, it's totally on why did they capture her. Alidei mamoin muteres labala. If let's say again her husband's a Kohen, for example, and we know that if it was alidei mamon, Rashi says dimir tasei lahafsid b'moyne ve'ein mafkirun oisa. In the event that it was for a ransom, so they understand that if they would defile her and destroy her and hurt her and all these things physically, then there's a greater chance that maybe someone will say, you know what, I'm not going to redeem her, which would be a terrible thing. But in the sick mindset of these Ovid Kachavim, their motivation is to maximize their payday. And therefore, they're not going to want to hurt her in any way or violate her in any way to jeopardize their getting money. And therefore, because of their motivation, we're not chayshed that they may have violated her, and therefore she can go to her husband. However, if let's say it's nefashais, that they were basically going to kill her, so therefore she's going to be usher to the husband, because obviously once they fear they're going to kill her anyway, so they were going to be noig hefker with her, and they didn't care. And Rashi says, interesting, it's not necessarily even a Kohen issue, it's chayshish shema nisrat sab echanehen. Maybe she actually had tashmish baratzain, and you can understand on some level her justification. First of all, idei nefashos is a question because it's, her life was in danger, and maybe als karka oilam she didn't do anything wrong, but the problem is that she may have on some level created this element of baratzain, and maybe she did that on purpose to try to manipulate that man to try to save her own life. So because of that, we're more chayshish that she's going to be ushered to her husband. Now, Rabbi Shmuel bar Rabbi Yitzchak Rabbi qualifies this and qualifies this a little bit. Lo shanu el shadi Yisrael to keep following chachavim. The only time we make this distinction between dini momnus and nefashis is dafka in a situation when the Klal Yisrael has some authority over those nations. Because of that, they're going to be, again, concerned. Says Rashi, De'alidei mum muteras l'bala, in that situation. They're not going to care. That even when it comes to dini mominus, they still may defile her because they have the control, they have the power. T810. The isha shnechem shall be akum he muteras l'bala. Says alidei nafashos asura alidei mamoin im yad Yisrael tekifa muteras im yad akum tekifa asura. That's TA10. So again, when it comes to alidei nafasha, she's going to be asura l'bala, and even possibly alidei mamon, she could be asur in the event that yad or v'kachavim is tekifa al atzma. So in this Gemara asks a question. Meisiv Rava. So Rava asked the following question. Hey, Rabbi Yossi HaKayin, Rabbi Zechariah ben Akatziv, he testified al Bas Yisrael regarding this specific Jewish girl, Shehur Hana be'Ashkelon, that she was taken as collateral in Ashkelon. Rashi says nismashkina. So she was taken like some type of a mashkain. Very chakuha b'nei mishpachta, and the b'nei mishpachta distanced themselves. The eideha me'idim oisa shalo nistra ushalo nitma, and there is witnesses actually that came to testify regarding this woman that she was not secluded, she was not defiled. Yarmul HaChachamim, and the Chachamim paskin on this. Imatem amidim shehur hanam heminu shlo nistur shlo nitma. It's all totally on your thought process. If you believe that in fact she was again taken this way and she wasn't defiled, the im iatem amidim shlo nistura ushlo nitma al taminu sheharhana. So it's like mamanashach. If you believe that she was in captivity, or because she was held for ransom, if you will, or for collateral, then you should believe that she was not defiled. And if you actually don't believe that she wasn't defiled, then you shouldn't believe anything either. You shouldn't believe that she was even held accountable. Now this nation, Rashi says this Ashkelon was an Eretz Pelishtim, Yisrael. The Jewish people were in exile, and also it was in the land of the Philistines. So they're the ones that had the upper hand. And yet, for some reason, we're being pretty lenient here. But Katani, as we continue Chav Zayin Amud Aleph, Horhana in Nichmishaloi. What does that mean? Says Rashi, Horhana demadas, if she submitted willingly. The Kivan dehagia zman, the time reached, v'lo and she wasn't redeemed. Harihi shel ovid kachavim b'dinehem. She's given over to them. Mishum hachim be'inan edim idanoisa shel nistera. That's why you need witnesses to that effect. However, says Rashi, nechbasha, de'eno nechletes lahem, lo be'inan edim, hoya v'lo alidei mamanhu. She'd be mutter in this case, since according to Akam law, the women doesn't belong to them. Only she's in prison. So then, l'chayra, this is in support of what we're saying, question of what we're saying. Now, huadin, if you'll nechbisha, umasa shahaya kachoya. So you say, no, we're actually, the case actually is, even by nechbisha, the same din applies. So why do we say the case of Horhana is because that was the Masa Shahaya. That is exactly how the story happened, and that's therefore how we relay the story. Adkan.